I kind of feel like the kitty today. Well, good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you here to the Catholic Pastoral Center. My name is Pam Russo, and I'm the Executive Director of Catholic Charities of Tennessee. A big warm welcome to Pastor Harris, to Renee Pratt and her team, and to our keynote speakers today. We are thrilled to be hosting this very important presentation. If there's anything we can do to make your morning more comfortable, please see me or one of my staff. But again, we are so excited to have you here with us today and for us to learn about the profile of financially struggling people in Nashville. It helps us do our jobs, and of course, the data is critical as we look ahead to providing social services to the people in our surrounding communities. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Renee Pratt.
Good morning. Thank you, Pam, for the welcome. We truly appreciate the use of your facility again this year. We are here today to talk about the release of the 9th Annual Community Needs Evaluation. We hope that you find this information useful and very informative. I'd like to take this opportunity to say a few thank yous. Thank you to the planning and coordination staff of social services for the work that they've done and the hard work they put into the community needs evaluation. Thank you to the mayor's office for their contribution to the evaluation. And thank you to the health department for the health section of the evaluation. We couldn't do it without our partnerships that work with us to leverage and continue the community needs evaluation. I'd like to acknowledge our commissioners that are in the audience, and we truly appreciate all your support. And now I'd like to welcome the chair of the Commission of Metro Social Services, Commissioner William Harris, to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning. I am William Harris, Chair of the Metro Social Services. It's good to see you this morning, a bright crowd. We're here to learn and to see how our city is faring. And I want to say thank you to Metro Social Services and to all of you as we learn together how to move our city forward. Bless you and continue to come as we support our communities and make things better for each and every one of us. Bless you.
Now I'd like to present Lonnie Wade. Lonnie is a program manager with Metro Social Services in our Family Support Unit, and he will talk a little bit about our programs and what we do at Metro Social Services. Lonnie Wade.
Good morning. So today I have the privilege to speak with you all. Today I have the privilege to speak with you all a little bit about some of the services that Metro Social Services shares with the Davidson County residents. Social Services provides or serves as a safety net for Davidson County residents. We are a trauma-informed care agency in that our approach to working with our customers is to focus on how trauma may affect an individual's life. It may affect their response to behavioral health services, as well as affecting the person's decisions that lead them to actually coming to receive our services. In this approach, we try not to re-traumatize our customers by recognizing that different types of trauma in their lives and in their homes bring them to seek and understand and work with them and work through their trauma by not letting it be a barrier to receiving our services. Metro Social Services provides a range of services to help Davidson County residents who are in need. These services provide and promote positive change for individuals and families in times of crisis and economic hardship. Customers who come to us can come by referral, walk in directly, fax, email, or appointment. So what do we do? Information and resources, case management, life management skills, senior nutrition, as well as burial services. Customers who come in for resources can come and speak or call and speak with an intake worker or one of our social workers. They briefly assess the customer situation, which could range from how to apply for a Social Security card, how can I apply for food stamps, where can I find or obtain housing, as well as what do I do if my landlord is trying to evict me wrongfully. Once they assess the customer's situation, they then make an appropriate referral or make appropriate recommendations for services to help the customers address their concerns. Case management. Our approach to case management is to consider the entire family. We adopt a two-generational approach in that we focus on creating opportunities not just for the adults, but also addressing the needs of both the vulnerable children as well as the parents together. A description of the continuum of case management can be described as a process. So case management is pretty much for more intense cases and is an ongoing collaborative process of assessing, planning, coordinating, and advocating for options and services to meet an individual's and family's needs. Our team of caseworkers assist the customers with a variety of needs, as I mentioned before, with ranging from housing, food, clothing, employment, accessing health care, as well as helping them to navigate service delivery systems. With our life management skills, the courses teach people the importance of having skills to help them navigate life. They help to explain how some adults enter into adulthood with limited skills and how beneficial it is to be independent, as well as how beneficial it is to be prepared to be able to handle and adjust to challenges in life. The program presents important and easy to understand information on developing skills on how to work through problems that may arise in everyday life and how to critically think through solutions to address those problems. In the sessions, we discuss how people can move beyond their limitations towards independence and self-sufficiency. This service is completely free to any Davidson County resident. Our nutrition program serves to provide nutritionally sound meals to eligible seniors and disabled persons. The program provides both congregate meal sites in Davidson County as well as home-delivered meals to eligible persons. The senior nutrition promotes better health through improved nutrition, reducing isolation of the elderly while helping them continue living independently in their community. To apply for congregate meals, visit one of the meal site locations. Referrals are required for the home-delivered meal services. Referrals can be made by an MCO or a professional doctor. Lastly, this is a review of some of our meal site locations. They cover a wide range of Davidson County's 526 square miles. And then our final program is for our burial services. Individuals and families may apply for this if a family member or closest next of kin relative is not available, then an agency or a friend may apply for these services as well. And that concludes my time. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's talk about the book. You should all have received one when you came in. That's what it looks like. Now, This is the 9th year that we have done the community needs evaluation. And I'd like to mention some of the purposes, because some of you are new here, some of you have been here pretty much every year, and we appreciate all of you. It's an instrument that gathers and collects data. It's created for a particular community, usually a geographic area, sometimes a particular subject. This one is for Davidson County for Social and Human Services. This one focuses on the particular population of the low income and disadvantaged residents of Davidson County. It enhances understanding of that population. What it is not is a job description for me or for Metro Social Services or for even Metro government. It's a community issue, and it takes everyone working together to address these problems. What it does is give the knowledge to the people who make the decisions, whether it's about funding or policies or services. If they don't have information to make better decisions, they'll have to use guesswork. And I would prefer that everyone use better information. We have several different kinds of data in the needs evaluation. We have the grassroots community survey that we have conducted every year for all 9 years. And we ask people that are customers in agencies that serve low-income people what they need the most. So that's covered in there as well. We also have a lot of census data from the American Community Survey. If you see data that specifically talks about a county level data bit, that is from the 2016 American Community Survey that's released in December. If you see something for small areas like council districts or census tracts, that is only released from a 5-year summary. The Census Bureau continues to collect data throughout a 5-year period and then releases it on small levels. Now, it is considered, even though it's not really good to show trends because it includes so many years, it is considered the most reliable data from the Census Bureau. Okay, this is the Davidson County's total population. And it shows that we've had an increase for the last 16 years. And the increase is maybe not as much as some of us would expect. There's been a 20% increase across the last 16 years. And that's an average of about 7,100 people per year. That incorporates the people who moved away, the people that died, the people who were born and stayed here. It includes everything from the Census Bureau. And that's 7,100 people. That averages out to about 1.3% per year. This is the racial composition of Davidson County. And we have a 64% white population, 27.4% black population. And what I want to mention about the black or African American population is in Davidson County, we do have a larger proportion. We have more than twice the rate as the United States, and somewhat more than Tennessee as well. So when we look to try to examine whether we are encouraging and ensuring that blacks and African Americans have the opportunity to participate, we want to look at the numbers from the local level. And we would expect to see people in more black or African American people represented in the elected situations and positions of leadership. So we need to remember what the percentage is here. In terms of geographic mobility, Davidson County residents moved from one house to another or a different place just a little bit more frequently than in the United States and Tennessee. The overwhelming majority, 82.7%, lived in the same house as they did the year before. And it's 85% for the U.S. and for Tennessee, so it's very close. The Hispanic population is about 10% of the total population in Davidson County. There's been a slow increase on that, similar to the overall population. It was 7% 10 years ago, and it's up to 10% now. So that's pretty slow growth. This is something that is important. This statistic shows the number of parents of children under age 6 who are in the workforce. And it's not just that a parent is in the workforce, it is that every parent in the home, whether it's one or two, is in the workforce. 69, almost 70% in Davidson County, higher than either Tennessee or the U.S. And that, the problem we have here is we have fairly low wages in a lot of jobs. We have high living expenses and a pretty high cost of living. And I don't know if you've checked out child care. I don't have any children, but I know the price of child care. It is very expensive to get good child care. So when people have high living expenses and low incomes and having to pay for child care, it makes it even more difficult. These are the types of employers in Davidson County, very predominantly private industry. Government workers will be the next largest segment, and it's pretty small. And I thought, well, I'll just look and see, because I assumed that Davidson County would have a very high percentage of government workers. I've been a government worker for 30 plus years, and it wasn't that way, because we have the state capital, we're a metro government, so of course we're the county seat as well. And it was surprising to me that in Davidson County, only almost 10% of the employees are government employees, compared to the U.S., and it's 13.6%. So I was a little bit surprised at that. We have a lower percentage of government workers than either your other jurisdictions, and I was just surprised. In terms of the location where people work compared to where they live, there's a high percentage in Davidson County where residents live in the same county where they work. In fact, it's 10% higher than Tennessee overall, almost 10% higher than the United States. So typically, we live and work in the same county. Health insurance. There are too many people who have no access to health care. And if a person doesn't have insurance and they have low income, it is very difficult for them to afford to get the care that they need. There are over 93,000 people in Davidson County who do not have health care. And the areas that are in red, in those areas, there is at least 20% of people who have no health insurance. Okay, let's talk about money. The median household income in Davidson County has shown a good increase. The median income is where the point at which 50% of the households are over and 50% of the households are under. And there's a good increase, about $8,000 in that 4-year period. This is a problem. Now, what it shows is it looks like we've had a good increase from 2012 to 2016. It looks like there's about $3,000 of an increase. The problem is when you go and calculate inflation, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics has a calculator online that anyone can do that, and you put in the year and see how much inflation has been each year since. And what has happened is what looks like $3,000, inflation ate most of it up. There's only about a $900 real value difference between 28 and 31. That's strange math, I know, but that's what happens. The buying power has decreased. This is another problem. Last year we had a section in the needs evaluation on disparity. And I encourage you to go back and look at last year's, but we didn't cover it again because we covered it pretty thoroughly last year. But this is one of the problems with disparity. The white population earned clearly more than the black population. And that's something that we need to all work on. The disparity is still there. Another section that was in last year that's not in this year is toxic stress, adverse childhood experiences. If you're not familiar with that, please go look at last year's needs evaluation, look at the Center for Developing Children and Harvard, and learn about that, because it is something that neuroscience can now prove, that different kinds of experiences to children can affect them for the rest of their life, physically, mentally, emotionally. So it's extremely important. Okay, there's disparity also by geographic location. The areas in red have median worker earnings below $15,000 a year. The orange is between $15,000 and $20,000 a year. So that's a lot of area where people have very little. This is the percentage of people in poverty, and there has been a decrease. It's still higher than it was in 2005, and it'll go up and down as things fluctuate. Poverty rate in Davidson County is 14.8, as you see. In the U.S., it's 14 even, and Tennessee, it's 15.8%. This is the poverty rate for minor children, people under 18. And there is still more poverty, even though it did drop, still more poverty for that age population than for anybody else. And the people in that population are the most vulnerable to the damage that poverty causes. Well, let's not celebrate yet. Yes, we have fewer people in poverty, but we've still got over 98,000 people in poverty. And it has decreased, but we still have more poverty than we had 10 years ago. So it's not quite time to celebrate and all go home. It's time to dig in and keep working. Education pays. Education costs money, but in the end it pays off. If you look at what someone without a high school diploma is likely to make, $22,000. And it goes up with every level of education that there is. And graduate professional degree makes well over twice as much as someone that has high school. And a typical Nashvilleian, and probably nobody fits in every category, but this is typical based on what the data shows. We lived in the same house. We're 34.2 years old. We lived in a family of 3.07 people. We have a high school education. We work in private industry, and we work in the same county where we live. And we make $31,899. As I said, probably nobody fits that. I fit very few of this, but when you combine everybody and look at them, this is what their average circumstance would be. So I'd now like to turn it over, if you can follow along in your program. We have people that will speak about the different topical sections in the needs evaluation. First will be Julius Witherspoon, first speaking on aging and disability, and then on food and nutrition issues.
As soon as you adjusted the mic, I came up. Good morning, my name is Julius Witherspoon. This is a special day. I am reminded of an old proverb that says, today is as young as you will ever be. Tomorrow you begin to age. I want to talk about aging and disability and food and nutrition. Aging and disability. It is an issue for a city such as Nashville. As we talk about the disparity, aging is an issue that continuously will need attention as we grow in Davidson County. These were the top 3 concerns expressed by survey participants. While these were the primary concerns expressed by older adults, the survey identified other issues such as housing affordability, safety, and food access for older adults. These and the other aging issues will guide the Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability on their 5-year state plan on setting priorities for older adults. Let's look at where older adults live in Davidson County. As noted by the darker green colors on the map, many persons aged 65 and over live outside Nashville's urban core. While many of our healthcare facilities are located in the urban center, as a result, aging persons experience transportation challenges in accessing needed medical services, as well as accessing food and participating in quality of life activities. Many of the activities that are advertised are in the inner city and sometimes cut off to seniors. Let's look at the aging population in Davidson County. According to population projections, by 2040, the number of persons aged 65 and older in the far right corner is expected to double. And so we're aging at a faster rate than some other cities. Davidson County's population of persons aged 60 and over is expected to grow in every age category over the next 20 years. Services will need to keep up with this fast-growing population. One of the concerns for older adults is dementia. Dementia is a growing concern for older adults. Dementia is an age-directly related disease. As shown in the chart above, persons 75 to 84 years of age has the highest percent of persons with dementia. But one of the other things that we're finding out is what we call subjective cognitive decline, which is a self-reported memory problem that's getting worse over the years. Only half with subjective cognitive decline have talked with their healthcare provider about this issue. Almost half of the people with SCD had to give up day-to-day activities and needed help with simple household chores, such as homemaker or personal care assistance. 2 in 5 says that this interfered with their social activities, resulting in them either having to leave work or impacting their desire to volunteer. We want to spend some time now talking about retirement for aging adults. While Social Security, if you look at this, Social Security is the primary source of income for many older adults. Almost one in 5 individuals rely on Social Security for their entire income. Social Security annual increases have not kept pace with this, and they were never designed to be the only source of income for seniors. The number of households in Davidson County receiving Social Security continues to increase. The mean average Social Security income from Davidson County is $18,611. For those who rely solely on Social Security for their income, this amount does not go far in a city like Nashville. Many older adults are postponing retirement. The chart shows the percentage of older adults delaying retirement and working longer have increased over the past 30 years, from 10.6% to 18.6% in 2016. Disability increases with age. You see the chart that shows the disability percentage. Ambulatory difficulty walking continues to grow in each age category. People with disability are more likely to earn less and are less likely to be employed, as shown on the chart. One of the symptoms of aging is the chance of falling increase. Falling increase among older adults are the leading cause of hospitalization and emergency room visits. Adults who fall are increased risk of falling again. 1 in 3 adults aged 65 and over will fall each year, and it is the #1 cause of hip fractures. And now I want to switch. When we talked about the Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability, and in a recent Senate hearing, we talked about the 3 things for people with aging and disability as we prepare for this tsunami. 1, you need to plan for retirement, stay active, and find your purpose and passion. It increases your likelihood of living longer. And now I want to switch quickly to food and nutrition. Food and nutrition. Food insecurity disproportionately affects low-income individuals and families. Food insecurity can negatively affect a child's brain development, delay their physical, emotional growth, and affect their ability to learn. For older adults, food insecurity can lead to more hospitalizations, increased medical costs, poor nutrition that can lead to falls and lower bone density. Our food insecurity rate in Davidson County has shown a slight decline between 2012 and 2015, but still 1 in 6 individuals in Davidson County are considered food insecure. As shown on the map, there are still people in Davidson County struggling with accessing healthy, nutritious food. As shown by the darker orange areas in Davidson County, we have added food deserts since 2015 and removed some that were once considered food deserts. A possible explanation of this is the changing housing patterns that you'll hear a little bit more about and the results of gentrification. When we look at who is more likely to be hungry, when we profile who is likely to be hungry in Davidson County, we find older adults age 65 over and children under age 18 are disproportionately represented. When persons are hungry or unsure of where their next meal will come from, other basic needs tend to be neglected or overlooked. These are a few causes of food insecurity among older adults. Other causes include high medical costs, high rent, mortgages, and just having to make difficult choices of how to allocate scarce financial resources. Food insecurity among young people affects us in many ways. Learning difficulty, delayed social and emotional development, behavioral problems such as fighting, bullying, aggression, and mood swings are found in children who are food insecure. There's a need to increase the number of summer meals. When school is out, many families struggle to provide meals for their children. Thanks to summer food service program operators such as Metro Action Commission and the Second Harvest Food Bank that tries to fill this gap with limited resources. However, as you can see, there is a huge gap in the number of meals served during the school year, 8.4 million as compared to the number of meals served during summer months. There's a need to increase access for children during the summer. Second Harvest Food Bank Emergency Food Assistance Program annually provides over 100,000 individuals with emergency meals over the past year, and that has been consistent. In Davidson County, when you look at SNAP for households that do not receive SNAP and households that receive SNAP, there's a significant difference in income. As shown earlier in the slide, the median annual household income in Davidson County was $31,999, which still does not go far, but you can see those households in Davidson County that earn quite significantly less. A recent study indicates that SNAP benefits help reduce problems later in life, improve educational outcomes for children, lifted women's economic self-sufficiency, and improve families' immediate financial situation. When we look at people who are significant in an economy such as Davidson County, service industry workers, we find that many of the people we find who clean our beds, make up our homes, cook our meals, depend upon SNAP benefits to supplement their incomes. We find that cashiers, cooks, waiters, waitresses, janitors, and salespersons, and those that drive our economy rely on SNAP benefits to supplement their food budget because they do not earn enough in wages to meet basic living expenses. What we're finding now is many policies are targeting SNAP benefits, particularly for those who do not have children. I want to pause here and take the time now to introduce our partner from the Metropolitan Health Department, Raquel Qualls Hampton, for her presentation. Welcome, Raquel.
Good morning. My name is Raquel, and on behalf of Metro Public Health Department, I want to thank Dinah Gregory, Renee Pratt, and Metro Social Services for the hospitable invitation to participate in this year's Community Needs Assessment release event. I'm excited to briefly share what's happening in health. Nashville is growing. What an amazing time to be a resident in Davidson County. Our population is growing in diversity with multiple opportunities for cultural experiences. We are receiving national and international recognition with companies excited to relocate to our area. We are truly the IT city. Now is the time for a checkup. The health chapter in the Metro Social Services, CNE, discusses this well-timed examination of Nashville's health and well-being. This examination will reveal what we are doing well and identify opportunities where we can improve. This all-inclusive, wide-ranging checkup is massive, and we need all our partners in health to come with us, alongside us, as we ensure the health of those living here and those on their way here. How will we go about this checkup of nearly 700,000 county residents and numerous health organizations? The National Association of County and City Health Officials have outlined a detailed roadmap that countless government officials with their community partners use to take the temperature of their cities. This roadmap is called MAP, Mobilizing for Action Through Planning and Partnering. During our last community health assessment, the community and health stakeholders identified 3 priorities where health organizations should focus our efforts. Health organizations, including Metro Public Health Department, hospitals, social service organizations, use these priority areas to guide and identify interventions and programs that should improve the health status and elevate well-being of Davidson County residents. In our health chapter, we evaluated the last 4 years of this work. How well did we do? Did we improve health and well-being in Davidson County? Well, I don't want to spoil it for you. You'll have to read the chapter. What will this community health assessment reveal? What will be our new priorities? How will we continue to grow with all of our citizens experiencing their best health? Stay tuned and check out healthynashville.org for recent status updates and reports. Are you interested in joining us, helping us with Nashville's checkup? We welcome you. Contact Tracy Buck for information regarding meetings and collaboration opportunities. Questions or health data needs? Healthynashville.org is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Or feel free to contact me. I would like to thank my co-authors. This chapter was truly a collaborative effort. As I close, one note of importance. When people ask us why we assess health and well-being, why do we evaluate our efforts? Dr. Maya Angelou said it best, and I'll personalize it. We as health professionals do our best to improve, sustain, and protect the well-being of this community. Assessment and evaluation clarifies, imparts more knowledge, understanding, and compassion to us. And when we know more, when we know better, it is incumbent upon us to do better. Thank you.
My name is Lee Stewart. I'm going to talk about housing. This is basically it. So, this is the current situation in Nashville. This is the current situation in Nashville. There's just not much more to say about it, so thank you. I have a few details. This may be good news for some of us. The accounting firm PwC has ranked Nashville's housing market in the top 10 for 3 years in a row. We've dropped this last year, which I don't think will make a significant difference in affordable housing. Online finance personal finance company GoBankingRates.com studied the 50 biggest U.S. cities, and Nashville's cost of living increase was #1 in the nation last year. Cost of living increase. There may be some good news on the horizon. Arch Mortgage Insurance Company has predicted that while our market will remain strong in 2018, our home prices will fall in the next 2 years because wage increases have not kept up with rising housing costs. The number of units for which multifamily building permits were issued increased from 2015 to 2016, mostly in the 5 to 9 unit buildings and 20+ unit buildings. And as you can probably guess, most of those were high-cost, high-end units. And for all of these things, there are links in the CNE if you want to dive deeper and get more information. About half of our housing stock was built before 1960, and we need to think about preserving affordable housing as well as just building more units. And most of you are not as old as I am, so let me remind you what the 1960s were like by telling you a couple of the products that were real popular. One was the stereo hi-fi record player, and another one was the dial telephone. You dialed like this, and it was wired right into the wall. You couldn't lose it. You always knew where it was. Builders responded to a Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta survey, and one of the things they cited as most important to building high non-affordable units was the cost of skilled labor. Even if you have a whole bunch of people that are willing to work, oftentimes the skills they have don't match the skills needed. So you have to import welders, and you have to import finish carpenters, that kind of thing. Rainmaker Insights, used to be called Rent Jungle, maintains rental market data of approximately 1 million geocoded listings, and they claim they collect data for about 80% of the listings in the US. And as you can see, they said in 2017, the average price for a one-bedroom rental place in Nashville was just over $1,200 a month. People that our economy depends on, as you've heard in a couple of the presentations before, can't afford rental housing without being cost burdened. And that means paying more than 30% of their household income for housing and related expenses like utilities. Think about hotel housekeepers, salespeople. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition says that if you want to rent a 2-bedroom unit in Davidson County last year, your household needed to work 2.5 minimum wage jobs if you didn't want to be cost burdened. One of the things you can do if you're interested in looking at other kinds of jobs and things is look up paycheck to paycheck database. You can put in various jobs, you can put in various locations and see kind of what's going on. In the orange and red areas, 50% and more of the renters are cost burdened. And that means, as Julia said, they have to make hard choices. I mean, do you buy your child's medicine? Do you send him to school with uniform that's not appropriate for your school. Since 2013, we've had people come to Metro Social Services and ask them, what do you need? And they always say housing and utilities, and they can pick more than one thing. In calendar 17, almost 90% wanted help with housing. 75% wanted case management, information about benefits and resources, that kind of thing. By the way, Metro Social Services is not a housing agency. We help people avoid the loss of housing, and we help them navigate the housing system. But we don't have housing that we can put them in. Like I said at the beginning, this is it. This is where we are now. But maybe in a couple of years, things will be better for those of us who are interested in affordable housing. Thank you. I'd like to introduce my friend, Abdul Barrei, who is going to talk to you about workforce kinds of issues.
Good morning. I will share with you a few things about workforce that's relevant to low-income households. Workforce is a huge topic, but I'm not going to go into that. One way to look at workforce when it comes to low-income households is to look at the unemployment rate. Since the Great Recession ended in 2009, Nashville's unemployment rate has been declining, and in the month of May of 2017, we reached it at 2.1%. That's a level that many economists consider it below full employment. However, unemployment does not impact all demographics in the same way. It varies from different groups. Let us see who is more vulnerable and more likely to be unemployed than the general public. Minorities have always, historically, experienced a higher unemployment rate than any other group. Let us look at African Americans. In Nashville 2016, at 6.1% of unemployment rate. Their unemployment rate is almost twice as that of the white population, at 3.5%. People that don't have enough education, what we mean is that post-secondary education, they always experience higher unemployment rate relatively to those who have got post-secondary education. And we can look at that in Davidson County. 4.6% versus 2.2%. People with disabilities. In Davidson County, at 8.1% unemployment rate for people with disabilities is twice as that of people who don't have disabilities, as 3.8%. We know the criminal justice system, it impacts our workforce when people are locked up or they may have felony records. We also know that minorities are disproportionately, especially people of color, impacted by the criminal justice system. Although people of color in America make up 37%, but they are 67% of those that are behind bars. In the long term, when people are released from prisons, they struggle to find employment, they struggle to find housing, and sometimes they are disbarred from participating activities that are life-improving, such as education, job training, and other wonderful things. In the last 40 years, there were three main things that are documented that have negatively impacted most low household income workers who don't have a lot of skills. Technology, everybody knows that. Globalization, that allowed through trade to bring cheap products from overseas, but also you can offshore and build your factories in overseas. The last one is what happened to unions. They used to fight for living wage, but they are no longer relevant. They exist out there. All of these things have impacted the income of many workers in America. As you all noticed that the theme of our event today is the financially struggling households in Davidson County. Through housing, other statistics, aging and disability and workforce and health, we have seen how many households are struggling. The question is, what happened? And how did we get here in the first place? And how did this struggle begin? When we started this event this morning, you saw a video that highlighted a little bit of this, but let us see if we can go over. 40 years ago, or more than that, corporate America decided to fight back. What they said was that regulation is too bad. We need to unleash the forces of the free market so that everybody would experience prosperity. So they called for what? Something called deregulation. What does that mean? Is basically, we don't need any more rules. We can destroy the environment. We can seek profits. It doesn't matter. That's what they said. And the government helped them through legislation, and we will see that. Corporations started saying that the most important thing is to increase shareholder value. You hear that every day. And one of the things that they do is what corporations? Something called stock buybacks. What it means is that they just repurchase their own stocks, so it reduces the amount of stocks in the market for them. Let us say a company in Tennessee earns $1 million and they have 50,000 shares. Through arithmetic, when you divide the two, it's called earnings per share, that's $20. So what they do to increase the share value, they repurchase 10,000, remove it from the market, so that now there is 40,000 left, divided by 1 million. Now the share value has increased to $25. Because the CEOs in America, as you saw earlier now, they make about 300 to 500 times what the worker makes in their own industries. This is how part of it is done this way. You manipulate the stock prices. You heard recently that when the tax law was passed, that there would be a lot of investment would go to workers. You heard, yes, the bonus. That's only $2 billion, but $88 billion since January. Corporations bought back their stocks. So compare that, $2 billion to $88 billion. So when you buy your stocks, they will not go into investment, workers' wage, equipment, so the production increase is not the point. The point is to enrich the top. Since 2003 to 2012, 54% of corporations in the S&P index in Wall Street, they invested their own profits into repurchasing their own stocks. That's $2.4 trillion. It's an economist that's known to do this work, William Lazanak, reported that. Also, they said that we need to reduce the cost of labor. You all remember in the late 80s, 90s, what happened? Staffing agencies. Nothing is wrong with that. That's part of the business. But what they do, corporations, you use few workers, now you don't need them. So that's why we have a large pool of unemployed people competing for limited opportunities. They work temporarily. They don't have to work full-time. And guess what? There are no benefits. So Julius earlier spoke, 20% of people 65 years and older, Social Security is their only income, which was not intended, by the way. It was supposed to supplement, not to be the main source of income. Globalization, cheaper products, offshoring, you do the math. Technology. Well, we cannot prevent the development of technology, but it has its own impact also. You don't need that many workers doing the same and producing the same output. It increases productivity, but also it improves life. We cannot deny that. The Great Recession. Banks were reckless before 2007. And we saw what happened earlier when the banks mixed both investments and retail, and they were separated in the past. So now, as you can see, we had a terrible recession. Some people call the housing meltdown, financial meltdown. But it ended in 2009. The other thing that we are experiencing is the importance of education. Regardless whether there is recession, no recession, be a union member or not, education is a very important thing. And when you look at that, even when the recession ended and jobs were created, people who had post-secondary education gained 5.3 million jobs from 2007 to 2016. So that emphasizes how education is important. Also, those that were requiring only high school, they lost 1.3 million workers. That's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So all of these have consequences. Unions, they did a great job in improving workers' lives. But while corporations were asking to remove regulations in the 80s, if you listen to many state legislators, what they say, we need to encourage the free market, and we need to stop collective bargaining. In Tennessee, that's not a secret. Most southern states, if you look at most foreign cars in the United States are built in the South. Nissan, Volkswagen, Toyota in Kentucky, Mississippi, because they say that we are free from union pressure. This is what happened in 1983, 20% of the workforce, or close to 18 million, were members of unions. Last year, 14.8 million and 10.7%. Most of these unions are now in government, in the government sector, not in the private sector. So what happens then? A large pool of workers now are competing. Even people have got college, high school, some retail here, some Starbucks there, are competing for limited numbers of jobs. And that pressures the wage. So we say we cannot afford housing, we cannot afford daycare, we cannot afford this and that. Okay, we're talking about corporations making trillions of money and buying back their stocks. Last year, 2017, look at the real average hourly earnings for workers was up by how much? 0.4%, not even 1%. The country is getting wealthy, Wall Street is great, but in Nashville, half of our workers made only $31,899. And this is a wage increase that we experienced last year. This is coming from Bureau of Labor Statistics, not me. This is what I was talking about, the median earnings for all workers in Davidson County, 2016, $31,899. Certain neighborhoods, you cannot afford even to live there. So that's the fact when it comes to worker earnings in America and why we are financially struggling. Social Security, Julius mentioned it earlier, 20%, 100% of their income comes from Social Security, which was not intended, by the way, to be that way. People coming to Metro Social Services, close to 90% are on the verge of becoming homeless because they can't pay their bills when it comes to housing and utilities. The banks, finally, let's talk about them. The banks are not bad. It's one of the great institutions in a capitalistic society to provide lending, loans for businesses, mortgage, wonderful. In 1933, when we had the Great Depression, the Banking Act was introduced to make sure that they don't become reckless. So they separate investment and regular banking. In 1999, a great liberal president called Bill Clinton, he promoted to repeal the Glass-Steagall Act. And from there, banks were told, from now on, you can mix and maximize your profits. A lot of economists will tell you that. Those were one of the major factors to the Great Recession that we had in 2007. Just in 2016, the banks, because now they want to maximize profits just like any other corporation, they made $33 billion revenue from overdraft fees. On average, customers overdraft about $24, but the bank makes what? $34. So that's where the $33 billion comes from. Now when you look at most low household incomes, or low-income households, where do they go for banking? Payday loans. 2015, 44% of adult Americans struggle to find $400 unless they either borrow or sell something. $400. On the other side, Wall Street is going up. 7% of Americans are unbanked, and 20% are what they call underbanked. Means they have bank accounts, but they don't utilize it. So there is no banking relationship. So that's why you see everywhere you go, payday loans are flourishing, because there is a market for that. Well, we understand there are banking challenges, unions are no longer strong, jobs are shrinking, but also there is a bright side in Nashville, Tennessee. Look at this. The greater Nashville area, from mid-2007 to 2017, the private sector jobs increased to 25%. And had a net job growth of 172,600 positions. Only Austin, Texas had more jobs than Nashville in the United States. And as we will see, these are what they call higher wage job growth. 42% increase, #1 in the nation from 2011 to 2017. So that means why Nashville has a wonderful job opportunity, high-paying jobs, and high growth. That means if you are highly trained, there are plenty of job opportunities. So I think I've shared with you enough how we got in here in the first place. From the 70s, deregulation, unions dying, banks playing games. The reality is, but however, we have to become practical. I understand that Lee mentioned it, 1 bedroom in Davidson County now is estimated to be $1,200 rent. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So what we need to be thinking is how some people were lucky to be part of this, and we need to figure it out. Maybe we can join them and focus on educational attainment, increasing, or securing public benefits and other things, such as work supports that help low-income families to get that. So we will have wonderful keynote speakers today who will focus on these issues. But right now, I'm sure you all are ready for a break. Why don't we take a 10-minute break and then come back here?
Gonna lower this a little bit. Good afternoon. My name is Alex Walker. I'm with the mayor's office. Before I forget, while we're fresh off a break and everyone is relaxed and has had a minute to breathe, don't forget to take your survey. I was told to announce that, and if I did not announce that, there would be serious consequences. No, I'm kidding. So over the last year, I have had the privilege of working with MSS through my role at the mayor's office, and have come to really appreciate the staff and the individuals working to help, at-risk Nashvillians. And so when I met AB a few weeks ago maybe to talk about what I was going to present on, I was excited to learn about a few of the unique things done by MSS. So MSS has been chartered to do certain tasks, and over the years, while the goal remains the same, those tasks might have adapted to the current situations. And so currently, these are a few of the things that are done by MSS to help at-risk individuals. And so with that being said, I would like to highlight a few programs done by MSS. So the reason I put the cold weather overflow shelters first was because I thought that would be very prominent since we've had so much cold weather recently, but then Tennessee decided to be Tennessee and it's now summer, so welcome. So MSS is the city entity responsible for organizing and managing the city's overflow warming shelters for at-risk people. These shelters not only provide a safe and warm place for people to weather the cold, but they also provide food and blankets, hygiene kits, and more. This year alone, MSS coordinated and sheltered at-risk individuals in the overflow warming shelters with a daily average of 129 people during the 23 consecutive days that the overflow shelters were open. So that was a great challenge, but MSS worked and coordinated across several departments to make that happen, and saved a lot of people's lives. Next is housing assistance and homelessness prevention. So MSS is chartered to help displaced or evicted citizens and those on the verge of homelessness to find emergency resources to prevent them from becoming homeless. Last year, almost 90% of the people who came to MSS requested assistance with housing, utilities, and other household-related issues. And so that's obviously, a large percentage of the people that are coming to MSS are looking for housing-related assistance, and MSS has worked really hard to provide that assistance. One special thing that I wanted to note about this is that providing that assistance to these potentially displaced individuals. It helps children, be able to stay in their same school districts instead of having, to be uprooted mid-year and relocated, and possibly doing that several times if you can't find assistance. So that's a really great thing that MSS has worked to, keep kids where they are, which they have a, higher chance of success if they're, staying in their same schools. Next, I want to talk about nutrition. So MSS is the largest meal provider for elderly and disabled individuals in Davidson County. In 2017, MSS served an average of more than 12,400 meals each month to elderly and disabled Nashvillians, many of whom are on fixed incomes. By providing these nutritious meals to elderly and disabled individuals, that allowed them to remain in their homes, and it lowered their overall health costs. So that is another great service provided by MSS, and one that I didn't actually even know about. So that's, hopefully, everyone's learning some things today. And next, indigent burial. So MSS is the only designated county provider of burial services for residents with no financial resources. Davidson County is the only county in the state that provides these services, and MSS has been the one tasked to provide dignified burials for these citizens. And this service also helps protect the health of the community as a whole. And then last but not least, and probably not new information to anyone, since it's the reason that we're here today, but MSS is the only entity that annually documents and reports up-to-date county information about households that financially struggle to pay bills, those who are aging or living with disabilities, families who can't afford housing, unemployment, inadequate nutrition, and other social and economic indicators. MSS also publishes Know Your Community, which provides relevant, detailed social and economic information about residents in every council district that is used by elected officials, policymakers, advocate, and the general public. So those are 5 unique things done by MSS. I hope everyone learned a little bit, and I will hand it over.
Good morning again. Earlier, we spoke about the financial difficulties that families in Nashville have. But we also demonstrated that if you get the right opportunities and education, that it's more likely that you will make it to the next level. And Tennessee Department of Human Services is the largest provider of those opportunities in the state of Tennessee. And today we couldn't bring a better speaker than the Commissioner of Tennessee Department of Human Services, Danielle Whitworth Barnes. Ms. Barnes serves as the Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Human Services. The department provided services to over 2 million Tennesseans each year through programs such as Families First, SNAP, child support, child care services, voc rehab, disability determination services, adult protective services, child and adult food program, and social service block grants. With a budget of over $2.6 billion, the Tennessee Department of Human Services provided services to promote strong results for individuals, families, and communities through meaningful work outcomes and community partnerships. Danielle Barnes earned her undergraduate degree from Spelman College and her law degree from the University of Tennessee College of Law. She is a graduate of Tennessee Government Executive Institute, Lead Tennessee, Leadership Nashville, and Tennessee Bar Association Leadership Law. Prior to joining Tennessee Department of Human Services, Commissioner Barnes served as Deputy Commissioner and General Counsel for the Tennessee Department of Human Resources. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the podium Commissioner Danielle Barnes.
Got me set up. Oh. Let's go back. Well, there's nothing more frightening than seeing my very large face. I was going to say I needed a moment just to prepare, just because when I look out into this room, I don't know what I was expecting to see, but I do know that as we talk about the state of Nashville, I feel just a little bit better knowing that you all are here serving Nashville. I was a little taken by the previous video. There was a quote in there that I had to write down because it definitely demonstrates why we're here. He said, "The little Lego people really ring true to me. I have young children, so there's Legos all over my house." How many of you all have woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning and stepped on a Lego? They're not that cute, little people, but he said, "Dream of equal opportunities." We still have a dream of equal opportunities. And he said, "We have a big problem in need of big solutions." And that just rang true for me because that is exactly why we're here today. As you all unveiled your 9th edition of the Community Needs Assessment, it is one of the things that we talk about in our department, and I think Gani said it well. You guys are the only city in the state, in all 95 counties, that is producing this kind of information. So I think that, in and of itself, deserves a round of applause. Now, today, you all have heard all kinds of statistics and data about the state of Nashville. What I want to spend some time talking to you about this morning is about the state of Tennessee and the future of Tennessee. And when we talk about the role of each and every one of us, I want you all to take away just one thing, and that's really about building partnerships and creating cycles of success. So join me, if you will, and meet Claire. Many of you all have met Claire. Claire is a single mom with 2 children. Sweet little Jacob in the front, he's 2. They're really cute at 2. He's probably having a tantrum right now, but he's still really cute. And then you've got Abby back there in the back, who is clearly not, she's shy. We should really break her out of her shell a little bit more, can you tell? But Claire recently lost her job. And she has found herself in a situation that she's never been in before. She knew that she had to care for these sweet little babies, while she had to figure out a way to get her own self back on her feet. Now, we're going to talk about Claire periodically throughout the morning, but I wanted you to see Claire. But before we really get into why we're here today, I want to show you this graphic that really struck me. This is from the Congressional Research Service House Ways and Means Committee. And what this demonstrates is the over 80 separate programs that are available in the United States for low-income individuals and families. Now, this is just a portion of what the Department of Human Services does. Now, I've always been amazed at the vast array of services that DHS provides. We've always often said that we help citizens from birth to grave. We know that we are there throughout an entire individual's life. In childhood, Human Services support people by doing things like looking at how child care affects children later in life, pushing for high-quality education for children, and providing nutrition programs. We do that in partnership with MSS. And we talked about those stats just a minute ago, so that was a great link. In adulthood, Human Services support people by assisting with job training, connecting people to educational opportunities, providing opportunities for individuals with disabilities to find employment through the Vocational Rehabilitation Program, and encouraging literacy programs. We support older adults, again, in partnership with Nashville, by doing things like exploring how social isolation, which we all know can affect a human's well-being, and we connect individuals and older people to available programs so that they can remain in their homes if they are unable to leave. We provide those meals to them in the event that they are unable to leave. So when we think about these services, we know that at some point, we all are going to need a human services program at some point in our lives. And I'm here to tell you that DHS is always going to be here to stand ready to help those individuals in their time of need. Now let's go back to Claire. Let's kind of bring it home. Let's talk about Claire. Now, remember that chart? There's 80 programs. Now imagine Claire trying to navigate through that. Can you imagine you trying to navigate through that? I can't even imagine trying to navigate through that. I can't even figure out how to get to a human when I try to pay my cable bill. So can you imagine trying to figure out how to navigate through that? And all while trying to deal with the stresses of all the newness in the situation that Claire has found herself in. She's trying to figure out how to juggle childcare, providing food for herself and her family, and making sure that she has safe and affordable housing. Just to think about Tennessee statistics real quickly, let's pass that. Our cute little graphic here. In Tennessee, there are over 1 million individuals in Tennessee living in poverty. That's 1 out of every 6. And 15% of those Tennesseans, in those households, they experience food insecurity, meaning at some point during the year, they may or may not know if they have enough food or resources. Even more daunting, and the one that always strikes me and the one that drives me to work every day, is that statistic changes to 1 in 5 for children in Tennessee who do not know where their next meal is going to come from. But we know at DHS, we know that when Tennessee's families thrive, the entire state thrives. Our economies grow and our communities grow stronger and safer. We know that poverty disrupts families and their well-being, and that has a long-lasting consequence on our state's future. Now, I'm preaching to the choir, which is so apropos in a church, right? But we also know that there are things, there's been research to tell us how we got here. We know that some of you all may have heard of ACEs. Have you all heard of ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences? We know that individuals who experience ACEs they fare much worse than, and we saw this in that video, than some of our wealthier peers on a number of life outcome indicators. That's because these experiences, such as homelessness or poor housing, and we heard in that video, divorce, it can interrupt their school attendance and academic performance. Malnutrition and chronic severe stressors can affect the brain's healthy development. Now, this is not just anecdotal. There's been research that absolutely connects those two indicators. We know that these problems can carry over into adulthood, lowering financial stability, reducing workforce participation, increasing healthcare costs. It is actually proven that these adverse childhood experiences impact an individual's health later on in life. The more that individuals experience these cascading effects of poverty, the more our communities, healthcare systems, and economy, they feel the effects too. The best way to ensure that our state begins to thrive is to reduce poverty through family-focused support services, like nutrition assistance, some of the things you all are doing, child care assistance, housing, workforce training, parenting, and educational resources. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me again, because I want to take us back to Claire. What if it was easier for Claire to navigate through that system? What if we could offer programs to Claire that supported not just Claire, but her children as well? Because we know that if we can support Claire, we can help to remove some of those toxic stresses, and we can help to create cycles of success. So at Tennessee Department of Human Services, we've adopted a 2-gen strategy, which is a focus on the whole family, parents, and children. We know that the 2-gen approach requires adherence to 4 key components, which are going to be up here: education, economic supports, health and well-being, and social capital. All of these 4 areas must be met and addressed in an intentional and comprehensive manner to ensure progress for the whole family. Education is by far one of the core components of the 2-gen approach. Sometimes we call it 2G for Tennessee because it's a little catchy, and sometimes we sing it too. But we know that there is a strong correlation between low levels, and we saw this in that video as well, of educational attainment and poverty. We know that only 10% of those with a bachelor's degree find themselves living in poverty. Compare that to the more than 30% of individuals with a high school diploma or less. The poverty rate does not decrease until we get some education beyond high school. Research shows us that post-secondary education is increasingly important to obtain a job that offers family-supporting wages. But students who are also parents, we know that they face significant challenges too, so it's not just we're telling people to go to school. A couple of years ago in 2013, one of Governor Haslam's major initiatives was the Drive to 55, which I hope you all have heard about. But in the Drive to 55, the goal was to increase the number of individuals, the percentage of individuals with a post-secondary degree or certificate to 55% by 2025. That was a really daunting goal. It's even more daunting that we are now in 2018 as we think about this goal. But as a result, the governor's office created quite a few programs, one of those being the first one being the Tennessee Promise, which you all have heard about. It's the nation's first scholarship and mentorship program in the state, which provides high school graduates last dollar scholarships to attend 2 years of community college or technical college free of tuition. Another Drive to 55 program is the Tennessee Reconnect and the Tennessee Reconnect Plus Complete, because we know that it can help individuals, we can help get people to school, but we have to be able to help them get through school to complete school. Part of the critical component of both of these programs is indeed that mentorship program, because it goes back to, and we'll talk about the social capital piece, that wraparound service. The example that I always like to share when we think about the Tennessee Promise, and I am a Tennessee Promise mentor, I encourage you all to be too, because it's really simple to help change the trajectory in just one individual's life. When we think about the mentorship, I can tell you the story a mentor told me. He told me that he was helping his student try to figure out his first day of class, and the kid was so nervous, and you know, millennials, they don't talk on the phone, they text, right? And so he's texting, he said, you know, hope you have a good day, and the kid texts back, and he said, I'm gonna have a great day. I'm really nervous though, and he doesn't hear from him in a couple hours, and he says, help me, I can't find my classroom, and I really just can't do this. It's just too much. I've got to go home. And he says, well, the mentor says, send me a picture of your schedule. I went to college there. I'll help you figure out, how to get there. And he snaps a picture of his schedule, and he texts it back. And he says, I can't find the MWF building. And the mentor looks down. He says, hey, you know what? No problem. MWF is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're just going to go right here to the Student Center and turn left. So it's just really simply those sorts of connectors that I think that everyone needs. I think about how to be successful in my own life, and I couldn't do it without my community. But it's not just for college students. We recognize that there is also a need to do this for early education. One of our drivers is early education. So we partnered with the Governor's Books from Birth Foundation to be able to provide books to children from 0 to 5 in their homes. Now, if you all aren't familiar with the Books from Birth Foundation in conjunction with Dolly's Imagination Library, I will tell you, my kids are personal benefactors of this. There is nothing more satisfying to a child than running out to their mailbox, opening it, seeing their name written across a book. They then run in with that excitement, and they sit down and they say, Mommy, will you? Daddy, will you read this book to me? And so one thing we've done automatically is we've started a love for learning, and we have created intentional family time, and we've created a stronger family bond. The department has partnered with these organizations to be able to provide any student who is enrolled in the Tennessee Child Care Certificate Program with a direct enrollment into the Books from Birth. We have to date provided over 300,000 books to students. Now I could go on. I wanted to just quickly, I know I'm running short on time, but I just wanted to quickly tell you about the other two. We'll go through all of these. This is the great graphic to tell you how it all connects. The other two components, the third component is health and well-being, and the fourth component is social capital. When I think about my family, I think about being able to connect with families and friends and neighbors and having that support system around me, because that is what we know helps move families above and beyond. Now, I could stand up here and I could tell you all the services that DHS offers, but the takeaway today is that I know that DHS cannot do this alone. I know that MSS cannot do this alone. I know United Way cannot do this alone. I know Catholic Charities cannot do this alone. None of us in this room are here in a silo. In silos, we end up at that maze that we created in the front. We are committed to providing and continuing to provide that two-generational approach because we know that when we focus on the whole family, those partnerships thrive. So when you think about Claire and her family, I want you to think about the many families in Tennessee, the over 2 million people that are living in poverty in the state of Tennessee, and I want you to think about your role in helping families succeed. When Claire succeeds, her family succeeds. When her family succeeds, our communities grow. And when our communities grow, we build a thriving Tennessee. So take away and realize your role, your building block, if you will, in building that thriving Tennessee. Thank you for your work, and thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Commissioner, for those excellent remarks and encouraging. I would like to focus not just about the miserable numbers we saw earlier, about bad jobs and stagnant wages, and let us think about the future. Commissioner spoke about opportunities that exist in terms of family support and community collaboration. But also we heard several times today about educational attainment, and the last slide I showed you this morning, where it showed Nashville is #1 in the nation in terms of creating high-wage, high-growth jobs. And what I said at the time was, how are we going to get there? Some of us are lucky to be there. Well, we have another wonderful speaker, Ms. Sally Avery. Sally is the director of the Center for Economic Research in Tennessee, a division of Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development. She leads research efforts for business expansion and recruitment in Tennessee. This work includes workforce analysis, industry cluster development, and impact analysis of the department's discretionary grant program. Ms. Avery has extensive experience working with research to inform workforce development discussion, manages the department's performance metrics evaluation, and also conducts research of Tennessee's rural and economically distressed communities. Ms. Avery is a graduate of SUNY, the University of the South, with a degree in international economic development. Ladies and gentlemen, join me please to welcome Ms. Sally Avery to the podium.
right, good morning. My name is Sally Avery. I'm the director of the Center for Economic Research in Tennessee. CERT is a division within the Department of Economic and Community Development. As we talk about community needs, I'm going to elaborate on trends in economic development and workforce in Tennessee. ECD has several strategies and initiatives geared towards economic growth and new income opportunities for Tennesseans. You can see our mission across the screen. We have objectives focused on business development, which is recruitment of companies to the state from outside of the state. We have 9 international offices focused on recruitment of companies to Tennessee, and we also have 9 offices located throughout the state focused primarily on Tennessee company expansions. We also have several rural and community development initiatives with programs ranging from downtown revitalization and Main Street development to asset-based planning, assessments of community resources, similar to your community needs assessment. And we also have broadband access grants, a whole range of things, primarily focused towards businesses, but a huge component of economic growth is the workforce. And as we've been talking about, I'm going to echo some trends and the importance of education and employment. CERT is a team of research professionals within ECD that provides research to support all of these different initiatives. The department's long-term objectives focus on low unemployment, of which Tennessee is achieving, absolutely, with a 3.2% unemployment rate in December of 2017. You can flip those numbers for Davidson County, 2.3% unemployment in December of 2017, incredibly low. Personal income per capita, we also have the long-term objectives to have the lowest or the highest personal income per capita in the Southeast. We consider the Southeast to be a 12-state region. Currently, Tennessee ranks 3rd in this category with $44,325 as our personal income per capita. For Davidson County, the average is $58,283. As Dinah reported earlier, median earnings in Davidson County are much lower at $31,899. We also have initiatives or long-term objectives to have zero distress counties, high investment, business investment in the state, and high quality job commitments from Tennessee companies. During 2017, here are our business development results. In 2017, we landed 156 company commitments to create 21,483 new jobs, and those companies committed to invest $4.5 billion in the state. 45% of those jobs were in rural communities, 55% were above the county median wage, 60% were expansion of Tennessee companies, and a third of those job commitments were created through foreign direct investment. In Davidson County, just during 2017, we worked with 17 companies to land 2,800 job commitments in this county and invest $307 million. Some of the larger companies to commit were Phillips North America, which just announced plans to create 815 jobs in Davidson County, and investing in a business center for health technology. It's a huge success for the county and the state. Asurion just, can y'all hear me? Oh, there we go. Asurion just earlier this month announced plans to create 400 jobs, consolidating IT and headquarter operations in downtown Nashville. So there has been significant economic growth in Davidson County and Tennessee, primarily driven by Nashville's hub, and there's no question about that. I think we all have seen that in this room. So let's talk about our workforce. During 2017, Tennessee's workforce increased by 23,700 net new jobs. That's about a 1% job growth rate. The labor force increased by 2%, which is the 11th highest growth rate in the United States. And the number of unemployed people declined by 37%. That is the second greatest decline in the United States during 2017. So these are extremely favorable trends in employment gains. However, while the percentage of our population engaged in the workforce or labor force participation rate increased slightly during 2017, our participation rate as a state still ranks 12th lowest in the nation. This is where education becomes significantly important. The chart here shows, well, in the map below you can see labor force participation rate by Tennessee County. And in the chart above that, you can see labor force participation rate by educational attainment levels. The median labor force participation rate for 2016 is on the far right column. So individuals with no high school degree had a median participation rate in the workforce of 47%. This jumps drastically for students that are the adult population that has a high school degree to 69%. 74% of the adult population with some college or associate's degree participates in the workforce, followed by individuals with a bachelor's or higher credential, where 83% of this adult population is engaged in the workforce. So the data clearly supports the importance of education in workforce participation, and as other presenters have shown, in educational attainment is key not only to workforce participation, but to low unemployment and high incomes. Okay, so it's not only important to encourage strategies that promote higher educational attainment of Tennesseans, but we also need to think about encouraging job growth in positions that employers need to fill. Each year, CERT produces an annual study on skills gaps in the state. In northern Middle Tennessee, we found 133 in-demand jobs, and this report is conducted through an employer lens, so it looks at employer needs based on job postings and hires. I won't bore y'all with the methodology, but if you have questions, please let me know. The results show, and this is for the Northern Middle Tennessee region. We highlighted not only jobs that are in demand, but for a few key occupation groups, we tied the in-demand occupations to programs offered at colleges and universities throughout the state. So up at the top, you can see several occupations that are in high demand by Tennessee's employers in the Northern Middle region that require a post-secondary credential. Tool and die makers is one of those. Tool and die makers had job growth of 21% over the last 5 years, and tool and die makers earn $25 an hour at average, which is well above the median earnings of $38,000 that we saw earlier. Annually, that equates to $51,500 per year. Welders, cutters, and brazers had job growth of 19% over the last 5 years, but still Tennessee's employment concentration in this job classification is 43% below the national average. This is also a relatively high-paying job with $18 an hour at average. So skilled individuals in these job categories can earn much more. There were 1,200 job openings in this particular job classification in the last 5 years. So I won't go through every single one, but I picked those because these are we get questions from employers frequently about these types of job categories in particular. So you can see the related programs below: machine shop technology, industrial electronics technology, and so on. We also did this analysis for the IT positions, which, especially for Nashville, is extremely relevant with Asurion and Phillips, which I just mentioned, and countless other businesses that are expanding in IT. IT positions in demand in the northern middle region of Tennessee include computer systems analysts, web developers, database administrators, and so on. These jobs are extremely high paying and in high demand in this region. The last topic I wanted to cover today is a report on workforce disruption that CERT released about 1.5 years ago. We called this report the Tennessee Workforce Disruption Index, and it focused on 3 trends that impact or will impact Tennessee's workforce, including employers and employees. So, automation is that first trend. We analyzed the percentage of workforce in each county that has a high probability of automation. We found that job classifications highly susceptible to automation represent 45% of all job categories. 50% of Tennessee's workforce is employed in those job classifications. So this does not mean those jobs are disappearing. It means that if you're looking at a job classification, it's comprised of several different tasks, you might say. And some of those tasks have a high probability of automation or being automated. So this, as AB mentioned earlier, can improve productivity for Tennesseans. It can lead to higher earnings, more leisure time, all sorts of things that are beneficial to our economy, higher output as well. But there will be fewer jobs needed to complete those tasks. Occupation groups with the greatest share of vulnerable jobs included food preparation and serving occupations, sales jobs, production jobs, transportation and material moving jobs, and office and administrative support jobs. And I just want to repeat, this does not mean those jobs are disappearing. It just means that more tasks within these types of categories will be automated. Significantly, it's important to understand that these job classifications are typically lower wage than the occupations that are not going to be automated. The second trend that we analyzed was shifting age demographics. The retirements of the baby boomer generation is another disruptive trend that will face Tennessee and the nation. So our second of three indicators that we looked at was the share of working age population relative to young and old dependents. So on the screen, you can see a chart ranging from 0 to 100% on the y-axis. This is a chart of Tennessee's population broken down by age group from 2009 to 2064. You can see at the very bottom, the dark gray or black section is the population age 0 to 14. That population will remain relatively constant at 19 or 20% of Tennessee's population through 2064. The area in the gray in the middle is the Tennessee population aged 15 to 64. You can see that by about 2030, this population is shrinking as a percentage of Tennessee's population. So this is a big workforce topic, and it also greatly impacts housing, transportation, all sorts of things. So at the top in red, you can see the population age 65 and older, and this population is growing. The third item that we analyzed in our disruption index was educational attainment. Because, as I mentioned, those jobs are not disappearing, but instead, the jobs that are here will require a greater demand for critical thinking, judgment, human perception, creativity, social intelligence, and so on. Technology can complement labor when the population is equipped with the appropriate skill sets. So education is an important policy initiative to equip Tennessee's workforce with the skills needed to succeed. And Commissioner Barnes discussed the Tennessee Promise and Tennessee Reconnect, which are key policy drivers that allow Tennessee high school seniors, as well as adults that have not received a post-secondary credential, to obtain those free of tuition. And my last slide is just to show that these policies are working. We still have a ways to go. I grabbed this image off of Twitter the other night. Tennessee ranks #1 for its Fafsa completion rate as of February 2nd. In order to apply for the Tennessee Promise, students have to submit the Fafsa form because it is a last dollar scholarship. 71% of Tennessee's high school seniors completed the Fafsa, and we are far outpacing the nation. And I grabbed this from the Fafsa tracker, not from a Tennessee entity. So nationally, we're gaining recognition for several items, including higher ACT scores, higher standardized test scores, and so on. So to conclude, education is critical to employment and higher earnings, and we're on the right track, but we've got a good ways to go.
Thank you, Sally. I think what we're learning here is that the era of old systems is collapsing. Systems that were designed 40, 50 years ago or 60 years ago are struggling to survive. Whether it's about housing assistance, whether it's about financial assistance, and we need to start having a conversation about where the future is. I'm not sure if Lee mentioned it this morning. Affordable housing is a struggling issue in Nashville, and we know that it's about income. If you don't have any income to afford it, you can't afford it. There are beautiful buildings not far from here, but only very few could move that. But my point is that what Lee mentioned is that in his, you can look in the book, to get affordable housing. Our housing authority in Nashville, it uses Section 8 vouchers to assist many families, which has been a very useful tool. But in September 2017, between September 13 and 19, just 6 days, the application process was open. Guess what? 15,999 people filled the application. And Davidson County has about, what, 7,000 vouchers? So that tells you where things are. Social Security, which was intended just to be a supplement, is now the main source for many people. I remember 200 years would assist a family years ago. Today, we see families that owe close to $4,000 in back pay rent. My point is, the traditional system is, no matter how effective they have been, they are crumbling and it's no longer sustainable. So, speaking about educational attainment, transit, and other things, we need to see where we stand as a city. And we couldn't get that from a better perspective than the mayor's office. Let me introduce you to Eric Cole with the mayor's office of resilience, so he can share with us. Eric. You can be here, and then you can share that microphone.
This will make it more.
Please.
This will give your eyes something to look at across the spectrum. Good morning. I need a little more enthusiasm, please. Good morning. All right. Thank you all. I know we're towards the tail end of a great day, and so appreciative of the team at MSS and all of you for the incredible work that you do day in and day out. You've heard a lot and great wealth of information this morning. I think what the discussion sets us up for is, what do we do about it? And so what we thought we would do, and Abdul Gani was far too generous in his introduction, we certainly don't know everything and certainly don't have all the answers in the mayor's office, but we do have an opportunity right now to help facilitate partnerships and programs and work to drive towards improvements. I often think of this work, and Abdul Gani talked about systems change. I often talk about this work and think about it in the mindset of, if we are about systems change, in some ways it's shifting the direction of the great big ship that is the city of Nashville, maybe even 5 or 6 degrees, but 5 or 6 degrees toward a more equitable and productive and opportunistic city. So clearly, opportunity is the word of the day in Nashville, and you heard a great deal of statistics and information about that. Our population growth, the economy, the booming economy, our neighborhoods, all of this significant international attention presents us with an opportunity to really face the challenges of sustaining and expanding that growth and that economic opportunity. The cities that do it well, that are 21st century successful cities, do that. They increase access to economic mobility. They reduce barriers to reduce barriers to economic success. They work hard to reduce institutional and structural racial barriers, and they do that while they protect our natural and our built environment. And finally, they have a world-class ability for people to get around those cities. Those are, just our little goals as a group in this room, I think. And we dream and we look forward and we keep going, even in the face of daunting statistics as you've seen today. So what we wanted to do is just give you 3 little specific issues, efforts that are happening in Nashville right now. Not everything going on in the city, not end-all be-alls, but some specific items that you may not know a whole lot about that are underway, that the mayor's office is involved in going forward. And this is a lot, as you've heard all morning, I think, as Commissioner Barnes put it, as others put it, about connections and connecting issues, stop working in silos, understanding that a systems approach leads us towards better solutions. So the first one that we wanted to talk about is, and I'm going to let my colleagues each introduce themselves, but within the mayor's office, we have a pretty expanded set of professional staff who are far smarter than the people that have been around for a long time, like myself. And so we're thrilled to have them working on these issues and problems day in and day out, and I hope if you don't know them, you will get to meet them. So today we've got Julia Yslow and John Murphy, and I'm going to let them explain to you kind of what they do in the mayor's office, and then I've got a series of questions that will kind of lead us through the discussion. So you guys might want to grab, I don't know if that mic will pick up, but go ahead.
Hello everyone, I'm John Murphy. I'm the battery's out.
Doing this one? Oh, it's, wow, look at this. My Oprah moment. Mr. Murphy.
This is for recording. There's always technical difficulties everywhere. That's for recording. Yeah. Oh, it's for recording. Sorry. Good almost afternoon. My name's John Murphy. Should I just get up? I'm just gonna get up. It's humming. My name's John Murphy. I'm the Senior Advisor for Economic Inclusion in the Mayor's Office. There's a variety of definitions floating around of using these buzzwords, but really what that means in Nashville is that we're prioritizing 3 areas to lead towards greater economic inclusion. One of them is financial literacy, which is formal education. What type of financial education is being delivered, mainly in MNPS, but in other areas and venues as well. The second is financial empowerment, and so that is really what is being delivered in educational situations at social services agencies or CBOs, community development agencies as well, mainly for adults, so individuals that might be receiving surfaces from a DHS organization, and so on. And then the last is financial capability, and that term has been used in different areas to mean someone that has the capacity to use the education that they've received. And what we here in Nashville is what are the financial consequences are associated when someone has an interaction with the criminal justice system, and what are those collateral consequences, and what are areas that we can do to alleviate those. So that's kind of the broad definition of economic inclusion.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Julia Yslow. I'm the AmeriCorps Vista leader for the Nashville Promise Zone. This is a federal program that's based in the mayor's office. So we're working to sort of help low-income residents within Nashville with the barriers they face, such as affordable housing, infrastructure, crime, jobs, and education. We can talk a little bit more about I think we have a map up. Yes, this is a map of the Promise Zone. It's 46 square miles surrounding the downtown core. This area is sort of a weird shape, but it's census tracts, and it has the highest concentrations of poverty within Nashville. So it's weird to see all the growth and development within Nashville, but yet we still have these residents that face, high poverty rates, as well as all the barriers that many Nashvillians face as well.
Great. So I'm going to ask these guys a couple of questions. Erin Hopkinshield was supposed to be with us today. She's had a death in her family. So we'll all field or talk about the transit and mobility work after we've done these two topics. So Julia, in the previous conversations and discussions, was a very fine point put on the gap between strong wage job opportunities and people that are getting the credentials and being able to kind of move into those positions. Increasing educational opportunities is one of the 6 goals in the Promise Zone. Multiple people talked about Tennessee Reconnect and that work. So tell us what's being done around that work to help Promise Zone residents.
One of the initiatives happening in the Promise Zone to address educational opportunities is the Talent Hub initiative. We received the Talent Hub initiative by the Lumina Foundation in September 2017. And this provides additional funding and resources to increase the number of adults who go back to earn their post-secondary degree or credential leading to employment. And this is a partnership between the Mayor's Office, Nashville Chamber, Nashville State Community College, TCAT Nashville, the Financial Empowerment Center, and as well as some of our nonprofits partners within the Nashville Promise Zone. The Talent Hub will leverage Tennessee's free technical and community college tuition for adults, which will start in fall of 2018, as well as Middle Tennessee Reconnect's model of high-touch advising services. And the community will be able to align these programs and services to increase adult college enrollment and success. Residents within the Nashville Promise Zone face low post-secondary education levels and face many other barriers that make upward mobility more difficult. Also, employers will play a big role in the Talent Hub initiative by providing students with internships as well as learn and earn opportunities and full-time careers in high-growth sectors when they complete their degree or credential.
That's great. How many folks in the room have heard of, before today, the Middle Tennessee Reconnect effort? Okay, good, yay. It's one of my favorite things happening. So Julia, if folks are not involved now, or they are interested in this, or one of the things that strikes me about this work, or these barriers, is the barriers are things all of us work on day in and day out. So, the barrier may be you have free tuition to Nashville State, but you can't get there because the bus takes 2 hours, or you can't, a single mom or a single dad can't get childcare, or the financial pieces of how you pay for everything else in addition to the tuition. So 2 questions. How can folks plug into the Talent Hub, but then also kind of, what ways should people that work in those other spaces think about getting involved?
Yeah, and I think with the Talent Hub, they're trying to look at what are the barriers that people face and what do we need to address to help that person go back to school. So I know that they're developing a listening tour that's going to happen over the next couple of months to help communicate and engage adults in the Promise Zone. So it's designed to identify those barriers and talk to them about what needs to be done to help them complete and go back to school and complete their education. So I think they're going to develop a formal report during this listening tour that will provide recommendations in May of this year, and that'll be shared with local and state policymakers and community leaders to inform changes within TCAT Nashville and Nashville State Community College to improve the outcomes for these adults that are going back to school. So I know if you'd like to learn any more information, you can definitely contact Laura Moore in the mayor's office or any of the other team members for the Talent Hub.
Great. So we'll switch gears to financial inclusion, financial empowerment. And John, Nashville's seen some marked progress thanks to a lot of partners in the financial inclusion space. So significant national attention, but also real impressive on-the-ground results. So kind of where are we now, and then what else do you think we ought to be doing in Nashville, and what's kind of our roadmap going forward?
So in October, this previous October, the Economic Inclusion Advisory Committee, which the mayor formed, produced a report that has a roadmap towards financial inclusion. And perhaps the most important thing to come out of that is just how important financial empowerment, financial counseling, and coaching is to someone's life. The mere fact that we have the Financial Empowerment Center, which has been around now for 5 years, with the type of outcomes that we've had, $7 million in debt reduction, nearly $1 million in aggregate savings, is not a small task when you look at the starting point for most clients. $10,000 to $15,000 in debt, subpar credit score, most of between 620, 630, with 2 kids, and about $20,000 in income. And this is truly a remarkable program, and without exception, a lot of the organizations that are in this room today, when surveyed, said that this is one of the most impactful programs in Nashville. And the committee listened to that and wants to prioritize, and the recommendation was to prioritize financial counseling, financial coaching moving forward. And one of the key recommendations was to develop a professional development and mentoring program for social service agencies and community-based organizations to generate more financial empowerment capacity. And we will be working towards what that looks like and how that looks like in the coming weeks and months.
Great. I'm going to switch gears for just a second. We are going to work to get you out on time as promised, so don't fret. You saw at the beginning and heard in my title this crazy thing called resilience. And I'm not going to do a full song and dance, although I have one. You're going to miss the dancing, I'm sorry. But this topic and this work is not a new topic. It's not an added thing that we're doing. It's kind of everything we've talked about this morning. So this is the textbook definition of what a resilient city is. And basically it's that we're prepared to withstand shocks and stresses. And the definition of shocks and stresses is not just the rain that could turn into flooding, although I have good information from the Corps that we're in good shape outside right now. but it's also that we're looking at long-term stresses and long-term chronic stresses. So the acute shock is the flood, is the terrorist event, the cyber attack. The chronic stresses are crumbling infrastructure, homelessness, long-term economic inequality, institutional racism, et cetera. So we're in the midst of a process right now and to try to identify what are the biggest threats to Nashville in those two groupings. And so at some point very soon we'll be able to kind of come back and talk to you about that because we've done about a 5-month process of evaluating that. But I think the important thing is to think about what happens if we don't act in some of these areas. And honestly, we're part of an international cohort of cities, and physical collapse, economic decline, social breakdown are significant issues across the world, and they are not issues that the United States is immune to. So we have to look ahead. We have to look beyond today, tomorrow, into the future. The example I will use today is that of transportation and mobility. So we all know, and you've seen a great deal of statistics today about how much the population is increasing. That's not stopping. I don't know if there's any way it could stop. So we're talking 110,000 additional commuters since 2010. The mayor likes to say, your commute today was the best it's going to be. That it's only going to continue to get worse from here out unless we take some action. These little wheels, if you're from Nashville, like I am, we used to be a 10-minute town, or we were a 15-minute town. So that outside circle was a 15-minute drive in 2010, and the inside circle is a 15-minute drive in 2017. The simple fact is we don't have right-of-way, we don't have money, we don't need for the environment to build more roadways, that we need a solution that moves more people. And this graphic says it all. All of those cars move the same amount of people as this bus. So I'm not going to, this is not a political pitch, other than to say the effort and the solution around transportation is also an enormous opportunity for us to get a number of these systems work right across the city. And when I say that, what I mean is we are increasing, if we choose to do it, 89% of the jobs in Davidson County will be within a half mile of a transit line. 76% of our residents will be within a half mile of a transit line. Incredible impact on GDP growth, $3.6 billion of labor income to build the system and run it and hire drivers, and 3,800 jobs per year, should we do it. The folks that need and depend on transit day in and day out, seniors, those that don't have vehicle access, 3,100 households in Davidson County is a striking number when you consider how car-based we are. Single parents, residents with a disability. So 2 points here that I don't think get a ton of attention. One, for you all, and for those of you that run agencies, for your agency budgets, part of this plan will be a free fare card system for folks at poverty and below. So this is what some cities like Seattle and Portland have started to pioneer. And we will need, the city will need your assistance as agencies and working through to make that happen in a way that gets it to the most folks, because as we've seen with some of our other free ridership programs, like in metro schools or at the colleges and universities, you can make the pass free, but it's only as good as how people pick it up and use it. So if we make that pass available, it's going to be really up to y'all to help us with it. The last point I would make here is the focus on efforts that we've not traditionally done well. And so we are trying in a number of venues to work towards better inclusive hiring practices, our procurement practices, to look at women-owned and minority-owned businesses, and to embed that work, again, this massive stimulus opportunity into a system that improves the city overall and starts to help us fill some of those jobs and also provides mobility that helps people get to those jobs. The last piece, and then I will stop, on this work is a really important group that convened over December and January. And that was the first, to my knowledge, at this stage of a transit proposal, first committee that was really focused on the impact of this work and this development over the next 20 years on affordability, on gentrification, on displacement, and on small business development. So we have a series of recommendations that came out of that committee that the mayor convened that will also be a driving piece of how this gets developed over time. But it's moot, obviously, if we don't go forward with what is a very ambitious but needed proposal. I was on the council for 8 years as a district council member. We needed this then in 2003, and here we are in 2018. So we're behind, it's more expensive, all kinds of things have happened since then, and we still need it. So let me conclude with thanking you all for having us. My contact information is here, and I can get you contact information to any of us. We're very happy to continue in dialogue with you. Stay tuned. We will have more Resilient Nashville work coming out soon. And then I'm going to go ahead and say thank you and turn this back over to Dinah.
I'd like to thank our speakers, our presenters. I'd like to thank you for being here. We appreciate people being interested in those in need. And as you see, we've had a few less of them, a little bit of a decrease. But we still have a lot of people who are struggling. We have a lot of people who are suffering. And there is one thing I would like you to do, and I thought there was a slide, but I'll just say it. If you would please fill out your surveys and leave them at a table in the back or the table out in the hallway, we would appreciate it. Please read the needs evaluation. We just touched on some of the highlights today. It will be online if you want to share it with other people, probably the first of the week. We're also going to put the PowerPoints online on our webpage, so you'll have that accessible to you. So thank you all for being here, and be safe going home.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.